Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shambles United podcast. This is your host, Pranav Shahaney, and I'm joined by two of my favorite guests today, Karan Advani and Shots. So we're just under a week away from the new season, and it's heating up the excitement. And for a change, United have had an amazing transfer window. We've not got too many players, but we've just got two of them, and they're extremely great players. So we've spoken about Jadon Sancho previously on the podcast, and now it's time to discuss Rafael Varane. Now, initially, if you would ask me or you would ask any sane United fan 2 months ago whether they thought Varane would actually come to United, they would probably tell you that you're joking and they wouldn't believe you. But this is what has happened, and Varane has come to United. And for a change, United have two really good, and I would say world class centre backs. And coupled with that, they have two really good full backs. Luke Shaw is the form of his life, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka is only improving since he's joined United. But today's episode is solely dedicated to Varane. And obviously, later on, we'll speak about any other potential incomings and possibly where we see United finish in the league this year. But I'll come to you, Karan, first. What do you think about Rafael Varane? What a signing that's been for us, and how much will that improve us, and how much will it help us bridge the gap from the likes of Man City and the likes of Chelsea and probably even Liverpool?
Well, I think Varane is a phenomenal player. Centre backs don't get much better than Rafael Varane at his best, at least in Europe in the current scheme of things. So I feel Varane is a wonderful addition. We always wanted a centre back who could complement Maguire with his recovery pace and with his ball playing ability, and potentially maybe even bring Van Bissaka more into the game with his leadership and maybe improve him with his back post headers and multiple other weaknesses in his all round game. So yeah, I think Varane is a phenomenal signing, and like you said, like a couple of months ago, none of us would have expected Varane to join the club, especially after the Europa League final loss and Pau Torres playing one of his games of the season. So we were always going to head towards that, and we were linked to a couple more players like Koundé and other random names. Like there were small reports for Ben White and Tyrone Mings, and like as usual, we were linked to 100 players. But to get Rafael Varane, or as Pogba would say, Champions League Varane at the club, I think it's just beautiful to see.
Absolutely. And when they were speaking about Pau Torres, you could kind of understand where they are coming from because he's a ball playing centre back, he's a left footed guy. So he would complement Maguire really well, and Maguire would finally go to the right. So, even if we had signed him, probably not when we were in deep negotiations with Varane, but before we were linked to Varane, I don't think too many United fans would have a problem with it. Obviously, he's not as good defensively as Maguire, but he's certainly an upgrade on Lindelof. But as you said, Varane's just a completely different animal. So, Shorts, what do you think? I mean, we have obviously Pogba at the club. Do you think Varane's arrival is probably going to change his mind about United? Does he finally see us making the right steps? And I mean, what sort of an impact do you think Varane will have, not just in terms of the way we play, but generally about the players at the club and maybe even the fans? Like, what sort of an impact do you think Varane's going to have on all of those kind of things?
So from my perspective, Varane will not only give an added advantage and edge to our defense, but also transform our attack. So Varane has always been Solskjaer's number one target to solve his troublesome centre back problem. See, first we were actually determined to go after him, say about when Sir Alex Ferguson was at the helm. But if you're looking at how Solskjaer has been, setting up the team itself, uh, you had, say, the McFred pivot playing in front of the defense, and say many times against most opponents who actually brought the attack to us. Both of them actually were, the pair actually was providing security blanket for us, and this was giving extra protection in front of a central defensive partnership of Maguire and Lindelof. And they were not blessed with pace. Although Maguire was brilliant, he was one of the core and he was rock solid as well at many times in defense. However, the signing of Varane, say, who's much quicker than the our existing pair of defenders, even Phil Jones as well, who's coming back. It will allow us to be more daring and possibly play just one defensive midfielder. That is what we have been, looking out for. And Varane is, the kind of balls he plays, and the way he mops up counterattacks. Maybe say if you're looking at Maguire jumping into tackles or pushing ahead as a stopper, and it will allow us to play a much higher line than what we have been able to afford since, say, I think the times of Vidic and Ferdinand, maybe. Smaldini could not do that much, but uh, I think we will be in a much better position in, say, in our set pieces as well, because Varane is a very good header of the ball as well. And I hope, say, in the preseason that we saw against Everton, how Maguire scored a goal, we can expect more goals from Varane as well.
And I also asked you about what do you think about his arrival? How do you think that's going to impact Paul Pogba? Do you see him extending now because of Varane? Because Varane's the kind of signing that a club makes when they are ready to take that step up and go to the next level. And he's probably the kind of defender who can not only make us legitimate title contenders, but then we can actually go on and have a good run in the Champions League. And who knows with the luck of the draw what can happen. So do you think his arrival will maybe convince Pogba to to renew his contract, maybe get a higher salary, but at least stay at the club?
See, it all depends on how we perform throughout the season. If we don't get injured, like have injuries, and Rashford comes back as well, we can transition into, say, playing champagne football, say around, say, before Christmas. I see a new contract being signed by Pogba in January.
That's interesting. I hope, because he's a really good player, and it doesn't look like we're going to sign any midfielder this summer. So hopefully Pogba is the guy who, Pogba stays, and probably we see a different player next season. We always say that before at the start of every season, but let's hope that that's the case. And Karan, you've been in the past. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Pranav. Also, interestingly, if you've seen how much Van de Beek has bulked up, I think he might, give Pogba a run for his money for that starting position.
Absolutely, he's looking like a completely different player, and I really hope that he's finally used to, because I think the Premier League was a too quick and a too physical league for him last season. But I think now
Right.
he's got bulked up, and probably he's spent a year on the benches, so he's probably has an idea of how games are. Because you used to see him coming on in the latter stages of games, and that's when the opponents are really tired. So that's where he really did well. But if you're starting games, he wasn't really that good. So I really hope that Van de Beek
Right.
can be like a new signing this summer, because he really wasn't that kind last summer. But
Yeah,
I'm
I
glad
hope he
that
goes from TeamViewer to Chevrolet, actually.
that's true. And just sticking to Rafa Varane for now, Karan, you've been critical of United's wage structure in the past. You've been critical of how much he spent on transfer fees, but signing him for 34 million, and there are different reports. I couldn't confirm it myself, but I think it's between 170k to 190k a week what he's getting, which is relatively low compared to what the top defenders and the top players in the world are getting. So, do you think financially this has been one of the greatest deals that we've done in the last 5 or 7 years?
Well, I feel over the past 18 months, barring the first summer window under Ole, where we signed Maguire, James, and Van Bissaka, I feel we've been very shrewd with our business, because we've ended up scouting a few very solid players. Like even when you talk about the likes of Van de Beek and Bruno Fernandes, they're not the players that United would have targeted, let's say, 5 years ago. They wouldn't be the Rolls Royce players that United would be targeting. And even in terms of our wage structure, I feel United have gotten smarter, that's for sure, because we've let go of a few high waged players like Ashley Young and Chris Smalling and Alexis Sanchez and Romelu Lukaku. So we've let go of a few players that were making a lot of money, and over the past 2.5 years, while we've signed a few players, we've seen Bruno on 100k a week, like you mentioned. Varane is on 190k a week roundabout. Van Bissaka is earning about 100. So I feel United have gotten smarter, and I think that work was quite evident. Like last season, I think the Athletic released a report on how much each Premier League club was paying in terms of wages, and also which clubs in Europe were spending the most on their wages. So I believe Chelsea was spending only 1 million less than United over 12 months, and to see that from where United were before Ole, I feel that's a remarkable turn of events, and it's just going to be interesting to see how we can further establish control over players that are coming in, and hopefully we can get rid of a few more troublesome players like maybe Phil Jones or uh, Andres Pereira, Nemanja Matic, people who have high wages and don't necessarily start for the club.
That's a really good point. And I think a lot of that has to do with the structural changes that have been going on behind the scenes. Obviously, Woodward only just left, but there was a transition period and there was Murtaugh who was appointed way before Woodward left. So I think that there is some thought process going on at the club and some sane minds who probably informed the owners that this is not how a successful club works. And you're right. Over the last 2 years, we've really seen a drastic change, and I'm actually proud of United's business in the transfer window because earlier I used to just see us going for the players that are linked the most with the big clubs, and then we tend to overpay for them. We tend to give them high salaries. So, Shorts, what do you think financially? 34 million. Have we got a great bargain for Rafa Varane?
I definitely think so. Like it's one of the best businesses in this window currently. Even for Sancho, we haven't overpaid. Actually, if you're looking at what was supposed to be paid last season, we did. It was not a great move to wait for such a long time, but we got him in for a good. It was a good amount. It wasn't too expensive. It wasn't too low. Similarly for Varane, like for a player who was, I think it was in the last year of his contract. Uh, Looking at that, and plus the pedigree that he brings, how much he'll be, helping us switch play and backing us up in the defense, and also his heading ability. That like it's a class move. But only thing is with the kind of baggage that we still have from say the years of us panic buying and giving contracts on a whim, that's been anchoring us down into rather than going haywire in the transfer market and getting a few more possible transfer targets as well.
That's a really important point. So, Shorts, I'll just stick with you. Do you think that Varane signing has now made us title contenders? Do you see us maybe challenge City for the title? Let's say if Man City don't sign Harry Kane this summer, do you see that happening? Do you see us pushing for the title? Maybe if we sign a DM, which I think is highly unlikely at the moment, but if we sign one and City don't get Kane, do you see that happening?
If we do get a DM, we definitely have a good chance. But if we don't, I don't see us actually challenging for the title unless and until we go on another, unbeaten run away from home.
And Karan, what do you think? How much is Varane's signing going to add to our points on the table? Is it going to affect our Champions League performances?
Well, personally, I feel that regardless of signing the likes of Sancho and Varane, we would have seen an improvement in our points tally because last season United had one of the worst fixture congestions across Europe, and to get 74 points, if I'm not wrong, last season, to have a normal schedule and to have the same players, we would have seen an upward shift of maybe 6 to 7 points. But when you add somebody like Sancho who can unlock these low blocks and beat teams like maybe Burnley or Norwich, then like newly promoted sides. So I feel Sancho would be winning us a lot more points. And defensively, we've been really frail last season, especially during uh, squeaky bum time. We saw a 3-all equalizer by Calvert-Lewin at Everton. And
Yeah.
we've seen so many late goals that have been conceded, and we've seen so many cases where Van Bissaka has been unmarked at like hasn't been marking his man at the back post. We saw Brighton hitting the post against United three or four times in the same game. I don't think these things are going to happen with Varane's leadership and with Sancho's creativity uh, in the final third. So United are bound to increase their points tally, but by how much, that's going to be very difficult to predict, because City are going all guns blazing. They might sign. They've already signed Grealish, who, in my opinion, is one of the best players in the Premier League, and they might sign potentially the best striker in Europe at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be difficult to stop
Mm,
City. But if there are two clubs that could stop City this season, it's probably United and Chelsea, because Chelsea are tactically really sound, and having the likes of Werner and Lukaku running behind it's just going to be really lethal.
true.
And last season, obviously, our Champions League performance was pretty underwhelming to say the least. We started really strongly, and it looked like we were going to probably win the group, and then we didn't end up qualifying. We obviously moved down to the Europa League, and then we reached the final, which we ended up losing. But do you guys see? Obviously, I think round of 16 should be a given the signings we've made and given the progress we've made. But where do you guys see us in the Champions League? Because personally, I think anything above or beyond the quarterfinals is going to be a success in the Champions League. Do you see us maybe reach the semifinals or maybe even the final, or do you think we should be content with the quarterfinal finish? What do you think, Charles?
I think if injuries don't uh, like hamper us, and Rashford is back rejuvenated and he recuperates well, maybe we can have a semi-final run. But getting to the quarterfinals, playing well, that would be a good sign of progression. Uh, the draws are still not out, but I hope we do make it to the semis.
I think in the past, United teams didn't really care of the draw. They were just like, bring it on because we had that kind of confidence. And of late, I feel that that's lacking not just in the fans but also in the team. And I don't think that is the right attitude to have. What do you think, Karan? Do you think that we should be worried of the draw? Say if we get a team in the top in pot one who's probably, I mean, which teams will you really get scared of right now apart from the Bayerns and the PSGs? I mean, no other team really should threaten United, right? What do you think? Because obviously we can't play anyone from England. So those will probably be the only two teams that United fans would like to avoid. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, for starters, I feel Champions League is a crazy tournament. Like anything could happen. You could benefit through injuries for the opposition. You could get an easier draw. You might avoid like the PSGs and the Barcelonas and the Real Madrid. You might avoid these world class teams. And United, I feel this time around are really well equipped to go deep into the Champions League, because we're in pot two, and pot two currently has the likes of Juventus, Real Madrid, Barcelona, uh, PSG, and Sevilla, Borussia Dortmund. So I feel pot two is arguably stronger than pot one, strangely enough, this time out, because last season we saw Chelsea, we have Villarreal in pot one, we have the likes of Lille and Inter Milan that's been really disrupted after this summer. So I think pot two is actually quite stronger in relative terms. So United might feel able to get a favorable group, so they should be able to get out of it. And besides that, it's going to be a game by game basis, and United do have the quality to trouble any opposition in Europe on their day. We've seen that we've seen that last season when we beat PSG and Red Bull Leipzig in the Champions League. So yeah, I back United, but it's going to be very interesting to see how we would cope up in these big games. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because PSG have always been winning the league, and like just to be just to say, like Mauricio Pochettino tax. So
But I really do
yeah,
hope we get Barcelona this time around. I really want
yeah.
to beat them.
I think
I don't.
Madrid, Barca, PSG, uh, Liverpool, everybody's in pot two, so it's going to be we're going to have a fairly good run to, let's say, maybe the quarterfinals, and then we might face one of the big guns.
Yeah, because I don't think that facing Real Madrid or Barcelona or even Atletico Madrid is going to be too much of a problem, because I think on paper now we can probably match them in terms. Maybe Real Madrid have a better team on paper, but they've lost two of their best defenders. The midfield is aging. Hazard's not kicking on all, firing on all cylinders. So I think, and Benzema is obviously on the way out. So I don't know how he's going to be next season. So in terms of that, I think we are pretty solid compared to the big teams. What do you guys think? Like compared to at least the big teams in Spain?
In Spain, we are definitely like, I would back United to beat any team in Spain, like,
Yeah.
minus Villarreal. So yeah,
And
I would back
Sevilla.
us to beat. Yeah, I would back us to beat teams in Spain. But let's be honest, like, I believe there are maybe 4 or 5 clubs in the Champions League that would genuinely outplay us on could outplay us. Like, you could put teams like City or Chelsea or PSG, Bayern Munich. But besides that, I really back United to beat any other side in Europe. It's not going to be such a major difference in quality that which we've been seeing over the past few years. So yeah, if the draws are favorable, there's nothing stopping United. And in the latter stages of the tournament, we all know how these things work. One decision could go your way and the tie could turn.
Absolutely. And, we are making these predictions based on the current team and the current signings, assuming that no one's going to come and no one's going to go out. So from now until the end of the season, Shorts, first I will ask you, what do you think is going to happen? Which players do you think are going to leave, or which players do you want to leave, and which players do you think are going to come in? Because there are talks about a DM. Initially, there were talks about a right back, but it looks like Diego Dallo is staying, which I don't mind personally, because I think we would have been paying 30-35 million for Kieran Trippier, which is not worth it. There were initial links with Rangers is James Tavernier too, that was for 15 million, and Rangers could possibly now look to sell one big player, because they've been knocked out of the Champions League. But I still don't see United going for a right back. I could see maybe a DM coming in, but I'm not sure how much we'll be looking to spend on a DM. So do you see us signing that world class DM, or do you see us signing someone in their mid 20s who are potentially world class but not quite there yet?
So from an age profile, I think like Declan Rice has been Solskjaer's man for quite some time. He has been wanting to sign him. We have earmarked him. We have been scouting him a lot. But looking at the price point at which West Ham wants to do business with regards to Rice, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to get him. So he's out of contention. The other DMs, they're not proper DMs who we have been linked with. I would love to have Bissouma or in our team itself, but apart from that, there is no DM in sight who might be world class in my perspective, or is a natural DM who we can sign. I have been shipping a lot about Neves coming to United because he can play the long balls and he does not need to go out a lot from his role itself. But it's highly unlikely that we get anyone unless and until we sell off Andres Pereira, the preseason Pirlo, and Jailings maybe as well. But there's no other hope in sight currently.
I think regarding Pereira, probably we could sell him, although I'm not seeing too many credible reports of anything happening. And regarding Lingard, I'm surprised that we are asking for 30 million from West Ham for a player who's out of contract next summer. Like he's Lingard. I know he's had a really good time there in the last 4 months. I think he's got 12 or 13 goals and assists in 4 months, which is really good for someone of his caliber. But West Ham are looking to offer 20 million for him, which I think is perfect. I think we should do that deal. But I think Ole is probably giving him a chance because he knows Rashford's going to be missing the first 2 or 3 months. So probably maybe
Exactly.
Lingard can just find his way back in. But regarding Neves, I think Karan and I have had a talk about this before, that he's not the kind of ball winner you need in your midfield, because we have a lot of good technical players in our midfield. Obviously, I'm talking about the likes of Pogba, I'm talking about the likes of Van de Beek, about Bruno, and obviously Fred on his day can play that killer pass. But
Right.
personally, I feel that we need someone who is a ball winner. Someone who's just going to get into the tackles, just going to chase players down. Obviously, make those dirty fouls like Fernandinho does for Man City. So, is there
Why
anyone?
I have been shipping about Neves
Yeah.
is only because his, block percentile. He comes into the 95 percentile
Yeah,
of top 5 leagues in the blocks itself.
that's
I know
true.
he is not fast.
Hmm.
He can work on his interceptions a bit.
Yeah.
And the kind of pressures that he puts in, because he's in 70th percentile if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
But if we do give him good center back pairing like Maguire and Varane behind him, I do feel that he can grow into that role a little bit. He won't be the genuine ball winner or the dirty player that we require, but
Yeah.
he can actually help us out.
Yeah. I think last summer when Spurs signed Højbjerg, I think they paid 15 million pounds for him, and that was a really good signing in terms of what he added to the midfield. He was
True.
one of the best signings of last season, although Spurs didn't do that well. But he was a standout performer, and he's done the same at Euro 2020. So, Karan, do you see us signing someone that way who is under the radar, who we are probably going to be linked with in the coming days, and then suddenly things will materialize? Because there were links to Camavinga earlier. They've all seemed to have gone cold now. He wants to move to Real Madrid. Initially, there were talks about PSG, but I don't think they are in a position to sign anyone now because they've got Messi. So, do you see any under the radar player who's suddenly just going to pop up on United's radar, and within the next couple of weeks we'll make progress and probably even sign him?
Yeah, well, I don't really think United scouting is as uh, good as people would assume it is, because to go under the radar, you really need to read like a lot of scouting reports, to go through a lot of players to get such a player. And I feel if United were to sign a midfielder this summer, it would most probably be either of Neves or Camavinga. And either of those deals are contingent on United making a few sales, which isn't very likely at the moment, because although I've read about some interest in for Pereira from Fenerbahce and Lazio, for a player that can't be dependent on either of those sides. So I don't think United would sign a midfielder, but if we were to sign one, it would either be Neves or Camavinga. And speaking of Neves, like, I agree with Shoto. He's not somebody who's gonna completely revolutionize United's play. He's not a lone DM. He's never gonna be a Fernandinho or a NDD or a Declan Rice. He's more suited to playing in a 4-2-3-1, which Ole doesn't seem to want from what we've been reading over preseason. So yeah, I don't think Neves is going to be the perfect fit, but tactically, if you have the runners in your team, then Neves might be a good option to ping those balls into space and have those runners run in behind. But overall, I wouldn't be the biggest fan of Ruben Neves, but yeah, something would be better than nothing. And if we were to sign him, I'm sure Ole would have thought it through.
And in terms of outgoings, Phil Jones is a name that pops up every summer, and he still ends up staying on our books for some reason. And I'm surprised to see that West Ham are actually considering him as an option when they've got players like Milinkovic and Zuma who are their primary targets. But Jones is still surprisingly a target for them. And I'm sure that, like West Ham, there must be other clubs that are looking for Jones. Do you guys see us shipping Jones out? Because from what I'm reading is that somehow he thinks he deserves wages over 100 million, over 100,000 a week, which is ridiculous for someone who's barely even kicked a ball professionally for the last 2 years. So, do you guys see us getting him off our books? Because I think the best way, if you're not getting a transfer for him, is to terminate his contract, because this is not it's not financially working for anyone except for Phil Jones, because he's just sitting and he's making that funny, and he's not really adding anything to the squad. Shots, what do you think we should do with Phil Jones, and how can we even get him out of the club?
See, I think Ole said that he is considering Phil Jones to play good like a good role in this coming season, and many of us were flabbergasted at what he was saying. Many of them was like there were reports that he's doing well in the training itself. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but uh, I don't think anyone in their right minds would actually pay like such a exorbitant wage for getting Phil Jones into their club, especially since he's not been proven. Uh, you know, he doesn't have a good record with his injuries, with his he's susceptible as well to a lot of errors. Um, I don't see him going out. The only thing is that we can hope we somehow we get to close his contract, or maybe he runs it down and he gives us 1 or 2 seasons where he can become a good role player, something like that.
Absolutely. And in terms of our loan exits, Amar Diallo has been linked to the move out. Brandon Williams is linked to the move out. Karan, do you see the two of them leave? Do you think that's a good way for their career progression, or and do you see any other names possibly being shown the door on a temporary basis for the season?
Yeah, actually, Brandon Williams, I think he's been linked to Norwich after the Southampton deal broke down and them signing Livramento. I think Norwich are interested in him, and it wouldn't be the worst signing in the world for them because they haven't exactly replaced Jamal Lewis in the most effective way after he left for Newcastle. So I feel Brandon Williams could get some good minutes over there, and Max Adams and Brandon Williams could be a decent enough uh, fullback partnership to keep them up. Who knows? But speaking of Diallo, I feel he does need a loan because I feel Diallo is too good for our under 23s and not good enough for our first team. It's a really difficult place to be in for him. And like with the performances that Anthony Elanga has been putting in over preseason, I feel that Ole would rather have Elanga off the bench in the last 15 minutes over Diallo because Diallo seems to be someone who grows into the game, who likes those cute link ups and tries to get into the action. Whereas Elanga, with his burst of pace and his finishing ability and his movement and his passing, I feel he's better off coming off the bench. So I can understand why Ole might want to loan Diallo, and I just hope he doesn't move abroad. He really needs to stay in the country because I read a report in the afternoon where he was potentially linked back to Atalanta, which would be a terrible loan because if he had to play 800 minutes over the course of the season, United could give him that. So I hope it's a Premier League club or a Championship club, but he needs to stay in the country.
And
Agreed.
what, and what did you make of Axel Tuanzebe's loan to Aston Villa? Because I thought that he would be a fourth choice centre back this season, especially after Eric Bailly's woeful injury record. So do you think that's a good move from the club, or he would have rather stayed at United and just added to cover? Because we definitely need at least 5 fit centre backs, and with Bailly we just have 4, and now without him we have 3. So what do you think?
I feel Ole has made the right decision to let Tuanzebe go because after he's come back from Villa 2 years ago, he got injured and he sort of lost his way. And I feel him working with Dean Smith all over again, working with Tyrone Mings, who he had a wonderful partnership with in the championship. I think it's going to do him the world of good. And at his age, I feel he really needs to play week in and week out. And if he were to make a career at United, he needs to prove a point at Villa. Maybe disrupt either of Mings or Konza from the starting 11, which is going to be a Herculean task for him. But if he can,
Absolutely, dude.
if he can do that, then it's going to do the world of good for his confidence. And speaking of your point about about the club needing 5 to 6 centre backs, I feel Ole has taken a slight bit of a gamble. He has Maguire, Varane, and Lindelof by as his top four centre back.
Don't
Option.
forget Jones.
Yeah, but like he's evergreen. He's too legendary. So other than these four, I feel he's gonna back himself to give Wilfish a couple of opportunities in the scrap games on the dead rubbers. And besides that, in the worst case scenario, if we happen to have a major Liverpool-esque centre back crisis, he might consider playing somebody like Matic or McTominay at centre back. But I don't think there should be a major issue in terms of depth.
Absolutely, absolutely, guys. And I know we've touched on this before, but just to end this podcast, I'm going to ask both of you all for your predictions for the season in terms of a league finish, and obviously who you think the best player of the season is going to be. So, Karan, I'll ask you first. Where do you see us finishing the league, and who's going to be our player of the season?
I think we're going to finish third, and player of the season, I'm going to be really boring with my answer. It's probably going to be Bruno Fernandes again.
And who do you
Because
think?
he's-
And who do you think are the three relegated teams going to be?
the three relegated teams, I actually back Crystal Palace to go down, and along with Norwich and Watford. I don't rate the manager at Crystal Palace, and their
Patrick
squad
Vieira
depth.
just had a heartbreak, dude.
I
No,
saw, I,
I
saw
feel-
I saw the predictions you guys did. I think all of you all put Aston Villa in your top 7, which I felt was shocking.
because I feel the top six more or less pick themselves. Spurs are debatable in six, but besides that, they
Arsenal
pick
too.
themselves. Arsenal, I really, if they don't sign a creative midfielder, don't be shocked if they ended up finishing 10th or 11th. Like, this is my popular take for the day.
Okay, and Shorts, what do you think? Where are we going to finish? Who's our player of the season? And who are the three teams that are going to get relegated?
Okay, so we are going to finish second. Sancho will be the player of the season, as well as he might win the young player of the year in EPL.
Wow.
Yeah, because there are a lot of stats to back it up, because he's the only midfielder after David Beckham to have 10 plus assists in 3 seasons consecutively.
Yeah.
And he has been really good. Okay. And 3 teams who will go down: Watford, Southampton, and Norwich.
Perfect, guys. Thank you. And this was a beautiful podcast. And thanks to all of you all for listening. A lot of you all have been getting in touch with us on Twitter. Thanks for that. We love to answer your questions. We love to share our opinion about different things, not just about United. And if you haven't followed us on Twitter and on Instagram, guys, what are you guys doing? It's time to follow us. It's time to engage with us, because this season is going to be like no other. And this season, we're going to give you everything on Champions United Twitter. So, I mean, thank you guys for listening, and see you later.